Today we're diving into a very hot topic, which is sunscreens and why some Australian brands might be failing to live up to some SPF claims.
Now, this has been making a lot of noise in the health and beauty world right now. Consumer group Choice recently tested 20 popular Australian sunscreens to see if they were living up to their SPF claims. Now, all of the sunscreens tested claimed to have SPF of 50 or above. And concerningly, only 4 of the 20 that were tested actually lived up to those claims.
Wow.
Some of the sunscreens tested were really low in their SPF in that testing, with one brand, Ultraviolet, coming up with just 4.
It's really concerning, and it raises a lot of issues about labelling accuracy and also consumer trust. Under the Australian consumer law, businesses or anyone has a legal obligation to ensure that representations or marketing that's made in trade or commerce is not misleading or deceptive. So if these brands are marketing their products as providing SPF protection of at least 50, we should be able as consumers to assume that that is the case and to assume that there's accurate testing or some sort of data that they can use to back up those claims.
The TGA has actually expressed some concern about the testing methods that are being used by some of these brands. Now, a lot of Australian skincare companies actually test their products overseas. The TGA, or the Therapeutic Goods Administration, has expressed some concerns about the accuracy and the reliability of those methods. At this stage, we have no clear answers, but it may be that in future there are requirements about where and how testing is done to ensure that there isn't a repetition of these same issues again.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We have these competing tests. I mean, it's going to be a bit of a tricky legal question. Some of these brands might say, look, yes, there were overseas tests that were being done, but we do have some data to support the claims that they're providing a higher level of SPF protection. Now, putting aside the reliability of these 2 tests, I mean, there's going to be some more information about this coming up soon. What would need to be found if a regulator or any individual who wants to commence proceedings is considering a claim under the Australian consumer law is they would have to prove, based on the available data, all the tests available, that the representations that are made in the marketing have the effect or are capable of misleading a consumer. And the legal test is a reasonable consumer led into error? Do they form some sort of erroneous belief when they buy sunscreen thinking that it's going to afford them SPF protection of at least 50?
That's a really big thing to think about at the moment, because a lot of people are quite shocked by these findings, and some people are questioning why there haven't been any penalties or anything enforced at the moment. Now, the tests that were done are not actually enough to trigger that enforcement action. So as you mentioned, there are some tests and thresholds to be met here, and it will actually take a body, Choice, or an individual or somebody else to actually trigger that enforcement action and commence proceedings. That person will need to show that they suffered some loss or damage because of the misleading and deceptive claims. So for example, if you purchased a sunscreen with SPF 50 and you were really severely burnt as a result of that containing either little or no SPF in the product, then you could potentially be the one to initiate those proceedings. There is a little bit of difficulty here in that initiating those proceedings could be costly and time consuming. So at this stage, that hasn't happened yet, but it could be something that happens moving forward.
Yeah, well, I don't think anyone should throw out their sunscreens just yet. It's still a little bit up in the air, and we do have these competing tests that we have to contend with. But it'll be a really interesting one to follow, and it'll be interesting to see if a regulator like the ACCC does commence action.
At this stage, yeah, I think people need to keep using their sunscreens, and companies really need to take care to make sure that their testing methods and results are accurate, to make sure that they aren't leading consumers into sort of confusion and exposing themselves to liability.